from Texas, Jasmine Crockett. She sits on the House Oversight Committee, which is going to oversee part of the impeachment inquiry into President Biden. So we're going to get to all of this. Let's begin with the Senate Intel Committee that was informed that the binder went missing after Trump left office. And from what you've learned, how alarming is this to you? And should the House, even Republicans in charge, begin an inquiry on this matter?
Absolutely, Alex. But, you know, it's just a circus in the House. And so if we aren't going after the Biden family, then there's nothing to see. And what is so frustrating to me, Alex, is that I do believe that Trump he was an issue for our national security, as well as he was an issue as it relates to international security. And so it's not odd to anyone that this binder goes missing. We have all these classified documents that are found at Mar-a-Lago, and we also have conflicts that ended up brewing with Russia as well as in Israel, right? And so it is concerning, and I need people to wake up and understand that while Trump may say funny things or whatever he says that is appealing to people, I need people to understand that he is a threat. He is most likely the cause of any danger that we potentially will see that ends up here in the United States, because this guy doesn't take it seriously. This is all a game. It is all a grift. He is trying to avoid his prosecutions. But at the same time, we need someone who takes the office of the presidency seriously and will make sure that they safeguard the secrets of this country as well as those of our allies.
I'm sure people have taken what you said very seriously right there. Let's move to what the House voted to do this week. They voted at 221 to 212, that was along party lines, to authorize an impeachment inquiry into the president. How did impeach Biden go from a political slogan, essentially, to a congressional inquiry when Republicans still lack any evidence of wrongdoing? I mean, are they just kind of hoping that something's going to turn up if they keep on digging?
They don't care. They don't care what happens. Right now, the ignorant people that they're pandering to, they're just happy because they're doing exactly what they asked them to do. You know, it is a disgrace in this country that you have people that have been former prosecutors, people that allegedly understand how we go about criminal investigations and criminal prosecutions, and they don't understand how we're supposed to deal with an impeachment inquiry when you are asking those very same former prosecutors, what is the crime? And they can't answer that question. That tells you everything that you need to know about this inquiry. They don't even have a crime that they're alleging. This isn't back in the day when we were dealing with President Clinton, where they said, this is what we know, we believe he did. They don't even know.
I have stuff to back up exactly what you're saying here, because Republicans did address the intention of this inquiry this week. Listen up.
What are you hoping to gain from an impeachment inquiry?
All I can see is Donald J. Trump 2024, baby.
Can you identify any actual policy decisions that Joe Biden has made in response to getting paid for those policy changes?
Well, we'll have to, that'll be part of the investigation.
Facts haven't taken me to that point where I can say that the president's guilty of anything.
So it's backing up what you were just saying. Is it too simple to say that this investigation is driven by politics, or does that about cover it?
That about covers it. Definitely Troy Nehls, a good old Texan, had to make it very plain. This is about Trump 2024. And I don't think that we should have people in office that are misusing their power for the purpose of trying to put a twice impeached 91 count indicted person back into the office. If the people decide that he should be the next president of the United States, that is perfectly fine, because that's what democracy looks like. But what democracy doesn't look like is people interfering and weaponizing our government simply for the purpose of politics. And that's exactly what we see them doing.
So here's something. Hunter Biden, as you know, defied the Oversight Committee's subpoena to testify behind closed doors this week, saying that he would only do so publicly. Instead, he delivered remarks on Capitol Hill. Take a listen.
I'm here today to acknowledge that I've made mistakes in my life and wasted opportunities and privileges I was afforded. For that, I'm responsible. Let me state as clearly as I can. My father was not financially involved in my business, not as a practicing lawyer, not as a board member of Burisma, not in my partnership with a Chinese private businessman, not in my investments at home nor abroad.
So here's the rub. Oversight Committee Chairman, Republican James Comer, said that Hunter is not above the law and intends to hold him in contempt of Congress. But how do you see that going? Did anything happen to Representatives McCarthy, Jordan, Biggs, or Perry when they refused to comply with the January 6th committee subpoenas? And then Mo Brooks said, he'd testify, but not behind closed doors, wanted to do so only in public.
It's more of the hypocrisy. I mean, it's plain as day. And the fact that the people that literally still have subpoenas that are outstanding are the ones that are bringing this. When we went to sit there as we were waiting next to an empty chair for Hunter Biden, you had Jim Jordan, you had Perry in the room, and they were so indignant about this entire situation. And I'm thinking to myself, pot, meat, kettle, right? Like, I mean, seriously. We know that these are guys that have disrupted and disrespected the process as sitting members of Congress. At least Hunter showed up. At least Hunter said, I am here and I am willing to testify. And honestly, at least Hunter has been willing to own his mistakes. That is more than I can say for any of the other people that you've just named.
Let me switch gears and ask you one more question about the Supreme Court ruling against Kate Cox, which has exemplified how far Texas's anti-abortion laws go. Here's how your colleague, Senator Ted Cruz, responded to questions about the case to an NBC News producer this week. Take a listen.
Senator, are you supportive of the Texas Supreme Court's ruling in the Kate Cox case that prevented her from getting an abortion after she learned her fetus was not viable?
Just call her press office.
I actually have for 2 days now, and I still haven't received an answer.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so is your Republican colleague justified in deflecting questions about decisions at the state level, or do Texans deserve to hear from lawmakers on reproductive rights policy?
You know, Alex, what this reveals is that even Ted Cruz, even Cancun Crazy Cruz, knows that this is a losing battle. I mean, and he knows this even out of the state of Texas. To have a woman who has 2 children who wanted to have this child along with maybe even one more child sit up here and beg the courts and go through the entire process, and to have the courts basically say, we don't care about your life as the life party, I think it says everything. I think that they know that the pendulum is swinging. And so for Ted Cruz not to double down and say, absolutely right, the Supreme Court got it right, it tells you that he knows that they absolutely got it wrong. But he's also afraid to say that. So his silence actually speaks volumes under this circumstance.
Okay.